Hello folks and welcome. Linux Mint 21.3 Cinnamon. Hopefully you'll have a little fun today. So I'm not advocating you change anything on your system, but however, I'm going to talk about what I call the yellow pages of the internet. DNS. You were probably thinking Google. No. I'm talking about DNS. All computers use DNS, including your smartphones with web browsers. I'll explain what DNS is. And I'll explain there are some free services that you can use out there for that. And you don't have to use your internet service provider's DNS if you don't want to. There are many reasons why people change those. One is possibly your DNS for your ISP, internet service provider, is sluggish, or you're doing that for a little bit of semi-privacy reasons. So I'm going to explain what DNS is, how your router works in the background, how your web browsers work in the background, and have a little fun at the same time. And I'll be giving you a little bit of trivia also. And I'll be using this app that I created here to demonstrate what human versus IP addresses look like. Welcome folks. 1920 by 1080 is what I'm filming in. Adjust your YouTube player accordingly if necessary. If you'd like to subscribe to my channel, the icon should be floating by your time and date with yellow brackets. So the Icelandic puffin says hello. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is what is DNS? So DNS is the phone book of the internet. Everyone uses DNS. If you're on a smartphone, your smartphone uses a web browser, it's using DNS, normally through your cellular network. It's using DNS nonetheless. Now, when I started many moons ago, and there was only 20 of these DNSs in the world, when I was doing some of my IT stuff, there are quite a few more nowadays. I'll give you some more trivia as I go along and having some more fun. But DNS is basically going to take those fuzzy, friendly names we call the Google.coms and the Amazon.coms and convert them into numbers in the background of your web browsers, as an example. And I have an app to show you that on my desktop that I created. All right, then I'm also going to talk a little bit about free DNS services. Here's some examples of it. And then I also have a chart over here that I got off of some website, Livewire, that shows that in a grid, complete with commercials, of course. I didn't turn on any of the ad blockers. So I'm currently using one of these services, not my internet service provider. Then I'm also going to show you the typical home router range of what your home router will look like when you look at your settings. It'll normally, most of your home routers will either be a 192.168 or .1.1 or a last ending numbers 0.1. Your router wants to be head cheese, big dog. Numero uno. Okay, enough innuendos here. Just having a little fun because the subject can be very dry. This is a typical home range of your home routers. And I have one programmed the same way. And I'm also going to be showing you my interface card, and that is not facing the public, so don't bother if you're trying to hack into it. More importantly, I don't use that interface card very often, so I decided to show it today. All right, so I'm also going to talk about what DHCP is, and it's a mouthful, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. That's a service, or it could be a server, but in this case, a home network would use a dynamic host configuration protocol service inside your router. And all that means is basically when you turn on your computer, it's going to contact your router and then ask for an IP address, and your router responds with an IP address and possibly a DNS with it. That's all that means. It's a service that runs on most home routers. Another piece of trivia. What kind of operating system do most home routers use? Well, you'd be interested to find out information. I'll leave you ponder with that one. All right, so I'm going to give you some of those examples, but the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Terminal, and then I will give you a document you can do a screenshot of. Let me make this larger for you one more time, filming in 1920 by 1080. So Bob is our user for today, and the name of my computer is LM213 or Linux Mint 21.3. So that's a funny command. RESOLVECTL space DNS. What it's going to give me is the two network things I have in my computer. One is Ethernet, which I'm not using. It's link 2. And link 3 is got a W in it. That means wireless. The same thing as this icon. So this is using that service, not my internet service provider today. I will change this number in a minute. So what do you think this might be? Well, if I go to this chart thing, it has a bunch of ones. That has a bunch of ones. So that is Cloudflare. The other number is a 1.0.0.1. That's what that is. So the one I have highlighted is the primary server, and this is the backup. So no, I'm not using my internet service provider's DNS currently. Okay. Close that for a second. If you'd like to make a screenshot of this, feel free. All you got to do is pause the video. Okay, I'll make this a little bit larger for you. Actually, let me resize the document. Then I'll make it bigger. I'll just pull the tail end down. All right, as I mentioned, DNS is like the phone book of the internet. It looks up that fuzzy, friendly names we call the Google or Amazon.coms into addresses. I'm going to demo that with my app that I created over here. All right, so some of the free services, if you're going to use them, do your own research, okay? That's all you need to do. So I'm using one of these currently, and let me bring up Terminal again to confirm that. So I'm using a bunch of ones. So again, if you can't read that, let me make it bigger for you. So a bunch of ones is Cloudflare, okay, on my wireless interface. You don't have to use this. You can certainly use your internet service provider. Is that DNS working for you? Would you like a little bit of some anonymity, a little bit of anonymity? Or just plain old using something different that may be faster, or maybe not. Just giving you some options. Here's the command that I punched into Terminal if you're curious. So do a screenshot of this document if you like. Now I'm going to move on. I'm going to first give you a demo of what I've been talking about using this app. I've shown this before. If you're a subscriber, you have seen this before with a different icon, I'm sure. Because I assign different icons constantly to things. It's written, it's a born-again shell app. That's all that is. But it doesn't matter, when I wrote this code in here, it doesn't matter which DNS service I'm using. It's still going to use the same thing. It's using DNS, Domain Name System. So I'll be giving you some trivia along the way too. Have a little fun, hopefully. So I'm going to, before I hit enter, I'm going to resolve google.com to an IP address. So google.com is owned by who? I'll give you that one, Alphabet. However, how many Linux servers does Google currently have? And you can also look up history from 10 years ago. How many Google servers were then? You'd be amazed. So the IP address has been resolved to a 142 and change. Okay, there's still sets of numbers. All right, another piece of trivia. Amazon.com. Amazon.com I use to buy coffee, and you need a lot of coffee when you cover subjects like this. just to make a mention of one product. However, you can also buy vitamins and tools and etc. Now, Amazon provides also some other services you may not be aware of. Cloud services. In other words, cloud storage. And you'd be surprised how many companies use them. How many Linux servers do you think Amazon has? I'll let you ponder that one also for research. Anyways, that current number starts with a 54 on it. So Google started with a 142. You're probably picking up on the idea there's different numbers out there. Yes. So I will give you another example, BA.com. I want to say that's British Airways. I don't think it's Bank of America, but maybe it is. Either way, it's an IP address. And that got resolved to a 23 blah, blah, blah. So DNS is in the background working. And what am I using for DNS again? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to close that. I'll have to open up a different terminal box in a second. Or I could use the same one. But We're going to try ba.org. Do you think that exists? Well, DNS will tell me if it does exist, or it'll give me an error. And in this case, it says, I don't know what you're talking about. Service is not known. So DNS, again, it looks up stuff in the background. Now, as I pointed out earlier, maybe I didn't say so, when I started many, many moons ago, there was only about 20 of these DNS servers in the world. Now there's a lot more. Let's put it that way. You can look that number up yourself. A little bit of trivia there. So when I switch to a different DNS service, my app will still work, because I'll come back to this and let you see that piece of information. So what am I currently using? I'm using a bunch of ones. And that bunch of ones is what again? Well, if I were to go to the internet, I can look it up real quick with this chart. The bunch of ones is Cloudflare. I'm going to convert my network card to the standard interface. So we can go with the system settings and talk about using the network box and hardware. You can also do some of that through here. I just find it easier to present this in a video. So before I open this box, I have only one interface, and the router has been programmed for your standard home router ranges. And the interface card is not facing the public, so I'm not going to be showing private information, in other words, because this network card is never seen on the internet. But more importantly, I'm just going to present this information by clicking the gear symbol. So your typical home router is right here. So let me open up a web page and show you the typical home router ranges again. 192.168.1.1 or the same prefix 192.168.0.1. Again, your home router wants to be what? Big cheese, head honcho. All right, enough with the innuendos. All right, so your home router also contains another service, which is called DHCP, Dynamic Host Protocol. So again, when you turn on your computer, it requests an address, and your home router responds in kind and gives your machine a number. So you can do your thing to go browsing on the internet or whatever. So a typical number will be between 2 and 254, bottom ending numbers. So let's say, what's our user for today? Bob. All right, let's say we have Mary has another computer in the house. So Mary's computer could have the same prefix of 192.168.1 with the ending number of like 126. Maybe you'll have smart light bulbs or smart switches in your house also. Those could be any other number in that range. And by the way, if you are doing smart light bulbs, my recommendation for home routers is dual band, especially 2.4, because your older smart light bulbs like to work on that range of frequency of 2.4 versus 5 gigahertz. So if you have a 5 gigahertz only, when you're shopping, let's say Amazon.com for smart light bulbs, always check the details on that. Make sure they work, because you'll find that most of your smart light bulbs kind of work with the lower frequency routers. All right, with that, I'm going to move on. So this computer has currently that number. It could be different. Dynamic Host Protocol provides that service. And what do most home routers use for an operating system? Another trivia question. Oh no. I'll let you ponder that one. You'll be surprised at the answer. All right, so we're dealing with DNS today, Domain Name System. So I am using what service currently? Am I using my internet service provider based on what you're seeing highlighted blue? No, I'm not. So I'm going to open this up and perform that command again. Okay. So my DNS is not the same as my ISP. And that's what I was using my toy with also. So it's Cloudflare. Let's look at the chart again. All ones are Cloudflare. All right. So commercials aside, we can talk about changing that number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to return this to default. I'm going to return this to default and talk about some settings in the IP4 settings box. I'm going to wipe this clean and show you a typical setting your home machine has and hit apply. Then I'm going to turn off the interface. Normally you want to reboot when you do this. All right, I'm turning this off and I'm turning this back on. If you have other wireless connection points, like you can see in here, then you may have to make the changes independently. Right now it's using what DNS? The same as my home router. So that means, what service do you think the DNS is coming from? My internet service provider. Because it has the same number as my router. My router gets the DNS from the service provider, relays it to the router back to your machine, or my machine in this case. All right, so now that that number is changed, what do you think when I punched into terminal that this is going to be? I'll make this larger for you. So now I'm using what? My home router's DNS. Do you think this application will still work? Yes. So this application that I created doesn't care about that service because it gets all of the information when it runs. My application runs the same ping command from whatever DNS service that you're doing. I'll just give you Amazon.com for a second, just to let you see that it works. And keep in mind, Amazon has lots of servers. There's a response right there. All right, document time. Where did I stick it? Here. Again, you want to make a screenshot of this? There's your typical terminal command for displaying what DNS you're currently using. And please do your own research. Am I advocating you change it? No, not at all. Just giving you some options today. So if you decide to use private browsing, what do you think your ISP has on you? Well, first of all, private browsing makes you anonymous on the internet. Not really. Your ISP knows and can gather information about your visit because you're using their DNS. That's one reason. Brave browsers are designed to have a little bit of privacy. So I have this one here is a Brave web browser, by the way. And you can install Brave web browser also in addition to your standard Firefox. But I wanted to let you see what OpenDNS looks like, and it's owned by Cisco. And they provide those numbers right at the bottom. Okay, so we can either use this service to reprogram that, or we can use my document. So either way. But I just wanted to let you see OpenDNS.com. They're owned by Cisco. And a lot of companies use that. And Cisco provides a lot of the backbone routers out there. Okay? So I'm going to close all that stuff down because we're going to make changes again. So in my case, I'm going to turn around and reprogram that network interface. So depending on which one you're using, I'm using this one today as my guinea pig. I want to change my default DNS, which is using my internet service provider, to something different. Okay, so I have a couple of things I can think about. I'll just use the web browser here. Usually hand typing this in is best, but since this is nice and convenient with the commercials, of course, I'm going to be using OpenDNS. Long number, right click, copy. Superimpose that, plug that in there. Now, if it does not turn white, if it's red, that means you got something that's not conforming. You can also hand type these numbers, and in some cases, I do recommend that. All right, so that's OpenDNS. Usually go directly to the carrier if you're going to do this. And you'll see their numbers down here. So I'm going to use this as my next step and copy that. So I'm going to hit plus and put the secondary server. Now, why do I recommend putting in 2 instead of 1? In case they're doing maintenance on the first one, it'll resolve to the second one. All right, there is a thing you need to do though. You need to turn this off. So it will use these servers when you hit apply. I'm going to cover this one more time. This is currently using your previous settings. This will be using my new settings, but please understand what these are. Dynamic Host Protocol does what again? Well, you turn on your computer. Your computer normally is not a hard-coded IP address. In other words, it's not pre-programmed. Your computer asks your home router for an IP address, and it does. If this is turned on, you will also receive the DNS from your router, and your router is using your internet service provider's address. This is not doing that when you turn it off. But you're getting the IP address from your router, but you're using a different DNS in this case. All right, when you do this and you hit apply, you need to normally reboot your computer. I'm going to simulate that by turning the interface off. But I wanted to let you see, first of all, I'll do this twice. I'm going to open up Terminal just to let you see that command. So you can see that number before I change it. The wireless interface, W, has that number of my home router currently. Okay, so I'll turn this off. And then I'm going to turn off the interface and turn it back on. If you have other network connections, you may have to do this manually. I have other connections in here. And more importantly, I'm just working with that one. Now you can see the DNS number is way different than from my previous screen. So what I'm going to do is close that, reopen up Terminal, and perform that command one more time. You can see that DNS is not using my ISP anymore. Okay, now I'm using what? OpenDNS. Document time. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to do a screenshot if you like this document. If not, no big deal. You can find all this information on the internet. But more importantly, the 208, sorry, not enough room on the screen here. The 208 ending numbers here is OpenDNS. Their free service part. They also have enterprise paid services too. But this is owned by Cisco. Cisco makes a lot of backbone routers. The big ones, the ones for the big boys and the big girls. Anyways, that's the backup. So the backup is right here also. Am I advocating you do this? No, not at all. Just presenting different information to you that you can do this if you want to. Does this still work? Absolutely. I'll make this bigger for you. Works just fine. All right. So lots of things I throw at you today. Keep in mind, there's plenty of free services out there. Wrong web browser, sorry. Wanted to open up that one. So DNS, again, is the yellow pages of the internet, and everybody uses DNS. I don't care who you are. As long as you're using a web browser, you're using DNS. Typical home router ranges are these two here. Typical. And then Dynamic Host Protocol is mostly found on your home routers as a service. There is also in a network environment for enterprise and big networks for offices, you may have an actual DHCP server. It used to be pretty heavy in the old days. And then here's some examples of that chart with commercials, of course. I'm waiting for them to load. And this only shows a couple of them. Again, do your own research when it comes to free DNSs. And whether you choose to change it or not, I just gave you some options to have a little fun today. Thank you for watching.